A new challenge over same-sex marriage filed right here in San Diego. I'm Dwayne Brown. The story tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. Also tonight, an effort to recall Mayor Bob Filner gets underway with a rally downtown, and the sheriff sets up a hotline to take reports from alleged victims.
I'm Peggy Pico. Local defense-based jobs take a big hit from federal budget cuts. How private businesses could help close the gap. Plus, a visit from the actress behind a familiar voice on the TV show South Park. What her one-woman show in San Diego reveals about women throughout the country.
We'll show you how to use old school and new school technology to lower your monthly energy bill. And the San Diego landmark's been commandeered by assassins and pirates. Arr! KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. San Diego County Clerk is asking the state Supreme Court to stop same-sex marriages. Ernie Dronenberg filed the petition today saying Proposition 8 is still in force, despite a U.S. Supreme Court decision widely regarded as authorizing same-sex marriages. The petition also says county clerks are not bound by orders from the governor or other state officials to issue marriage licenses to gay couples. On Monday, the state Supreme Court turned down a similar request from backers of Prop 8. And the state attorney general says the new filing doesn't offer any new arguments. County Supervisor Greg Cox says Dronenberg acted independently with this petition, and for now, the weddings are still on. San Diego County Sheriff's Department has established a hotline to collect any victim reports of sexual misconduct by Mayor Bob Filner. Deputies say there is no investigation yet, but if one is warranted, the Sheriff's Department would be the lead agency. They also say the names of anyone calling the hotline would be kept anonymous. The mayor denies claims he sexually harassed or abused anyone. A recall movement is gaining steam with a downtown rally at Civic Center Plaza. The effort actually began before Mayor Filner was accused of sexually harassing women. It was prompted by other City Hall controversies. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser went to the rally this afternoon. We spoke to her by phone. So, Claire, describe what's going on downtown.
Well, there's definitely more than 100 people here in Civic Center Plaza, a lot of supporters of the recall effort and a few opponents who are shouting out during the speeches to make their support of the mayor known. Mike Slater from KFMB radio station got things started by saying that the mayor is not lustful for women, but lustful for power. He says while the mayor deserves due process, he's an embarrassment to the city and should no longer be mayor. Michael Calamari, who is the lead organizer, was introduced by his 10-year-old granddaughter, and he said that he wanted to recall the mayor even before these sexual harassment accusations. He listed other complaints like the mayor's trip to Paris and his dispute with the city attorney.
And Claire, does it look like they're going to move forward with a recall petition of the mayor?
Yes, they said that this is the first step in the recall process. A woman who described herself as just a housewife said she's recruiting volunteers who will collect signatures and petitions on a website that was recallbobfilner.com.
We've been talking with KPBS reporter Claire Trageser. Meanwhile, San Diego's Democratic Party will not ask Filner to resign. The party Central Committee took 2 votes during a closed meeting and split right down the middle. Party leaders say so far there's no proof of the accusations.
If he comes to that point where he feels that this is a disruption, it is a distraction, we would ask him to do what he thinks is right for the city and step down. But we're not at that point where we feel that the allegations and the lack of process has brought us to that point where we can ask him to do that tonight.
Party Chair Francine Busby says the allegations are grounds for Filner's resignation if they're proven to be true. One of the officials picked to run day-to-day operations is urging city employees to keep working hard and not get distracted by news about the mayor. Walt Eckert became interim chief operating officer this week.
Our city is going through a rough time right now, and reading the news every day can be demoralizing. But we have an important job to do, and we need to stay focused on the task at hand.
Eckert is promising to improve internal communications to keep employees up to date. There is a recall effort, as you just heard. We have more on the entire controversy surrounding the mayor online at kpbs.org/news/Filner. A Camp Pendleton Marine walked out of the brig at Miramar Air Station this afternoon. Sergeant Lawrence Hutchins served more than half of an 11-year sentence for the killing of an unarmed Iraqi civilian. His conviction was overturned by a military court last month. Hutchins has been reassigned to Camp Pendleton. The Navy can still have the case retried or appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Congressman Duncan Hunter says the Miramar Air Show averages $1.5 million a year in profit. Hunter says canceling military flights at this year's show because of federal budget cuts, he calls it pure politics. He says he talked to sources at the Pentagon. Miramar has yet to decide whether to go ahead with a different type of show. And those budget cuts are starting to ripple through San Diego's economy and defense industry. Peggy Pico explains how private businesses may help.
San Diego's defense-reliant industries account for more than 8% of all private payroll jobs. And a new report finds local defense sectors are suffering most from sequestration budget cuts. Here with further details is economist Kelly Cunningham with National University System for Policy Research. And Kelly, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I understand there are very specific job sectors here in San Diego that are reliant on federal funding. Remind us of sort of the top 5 in San Diego, if you would.
Right. These are private sector companies and industries, but they rely on defense spending.
Right.
A lot of defense contracts, and the primary ones are the aerospace and shipbuilding. There's also the facility support, which are kind of office maintenance type of jobs. There's also an R&D kind of a thing, a scientific instruments, a lot of things that are used in today's modern military, the spay war kind of things, and electronic instrument manufacturing too. So those
as
are
in
5.
The navigation systems for those ships.
Right, exactly.
Right? And I understand, and shipbuilding, of course, right?
Right,
You do a lot of that. That's not. It's for the military, but it's not by the military.
Right. They're private companies, but they have defense contracts, and so most of these industries here in San Diego, especially, are dominated by defense spending.
Right. And in your report, I found that our region specifically is feeling these spending cuts pretty severely because of the amount of people that work closely with the defense government jobs.
Right.
How is this affecting these sequestration cuts, affecting San Diego's economy overall?
Well, it's slowing us down, and there's a ripple effect when you cut one job in these, particularly these defense sectors, that there are another 2.5 jobs that are also dependent upon that. That's due to the multiplier effect of the lines of.
Well, give us an example. So if you had one job, let's say that you said, hey, we have to let you go because you're not able to, let's do the shipbuilding, for instance. How would that trickle down to other people?
Well, there's the supplier companies. So like in shipbuilding, you're manufacturing, putting together big ships. Well, you use metals, the materials that go into that. But then also the worker goes out into the community and is spending money on groceries, and so there's this ripple effect. So it's not just one job. It really impacts over 2.5 other jobs as well.
And it sort of has this really interesting effect on the private sector who's not in defense contracts or in helping the defense. We're going to put up this chart here. I want people to look at it, and I want you to tell us what we're looking at as far as the graphics here. The top line is what? The private sector?
Yes, it's the private sector, these non-defense sectors. So, and this doesn't include government, but it are directly. And we know the military has already been in a 2-year decline as they cut back there. But these are private sector jobs, and the top line is showing how San Diego is. Otherwise, it's been growing. We'd like to see it growing faster.
We see a little spike on that bottom line. We see the blue line there where it's the defense-dependent industries. It looks like around 2012 it goes down. It comes back up a little bit, and then it sort of looks like it goes down again. And that's when? When does that drop happen? This drop happen?
Well, that was when they were debating what would happen. The fiscal cliff, and the federal government came to this. The government came together and said we were going to cut back, and they came up with this sequester idea that everything would be cut off the top, about 2% per year, And so it's interesting that just the deliberations, I mean, the effects. In
and of itself.
Yeah, just the fact that then that it was decided, being debated, and so companies realizing that put them in a very conservative mode. They're not going to hire more workers, and they actually started laying off workers at that point.
Now you suggested that so it looks stagnant there on the graph. We saw that, and it looks like it's bouncing back a little. Certainly not as much as the private sector, not related to defense spending. Do you think private businesses will be able to help bridge this gap in San Diego's economy? Well,
that is the good question, because if we cut back, San Diego's economy is so dependent on defense spending and the federal government spending, and so we get unduly impacted by that. We're probably 3 times as much impacted by federal government cutbacks. So that's the question: can our defense industries, can they transition to more commercial applications or other types of spending? And that's the question going forward.
Well, and I know you have some suggestions and answers for that, particularly in regards to building drones, but we're out of time, so I'll let folks find that on our website, kpbs.org. Economist Kelly Cunningham, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Mitsubishi Heavy Industries says it will fight claims of wrongdoing connected to the San Onofre nuclear plant. Mitsubishi made the steam generators at the center of the North County plant's closure. Southern California Edison accuses Mitsubishi of gross negligence. The Japanese company denies it. Well, there are plenty of options to reduce your energy bill as summer temperatures heat up, from spreading out the cost over 12 months to using various smart devices to keep the house cool and your budget in check.
So this is the smart meter. All of the technology that's available to customers is directly related to the fact that we have smart meters in all of our homes now.
Gina Jacobs with SDG&E explains how the smart meters are able to feed all the data from your home into various applications, from an online tool showing when and how much power you use daily to a smart thermostat activated by hand or remotely using your smartphone.
So you can set it to whatever you want it to be, from anywhere.
Yeah, talk about cool.
Yeah, talk about cool.
No technology needed for customers to take advantage of the level pay plan. It's been around for 15 years to help customers whose bills increase significantly during the summer or winter months. It provides more stability by spreading out those extra costs over a 12-month span.
We take an average of your previous usage and come up with what the average usage is for you year-round. And using that average, that's what we will bill you on.
From solar heating panels for your pool to simple energy-efficient light bulbs, there are plenty of options on the SDG&E website to help you save energy and money this summer. Right now, there are about 30,000 customers who use the level pay plan to average out their monthly bill. Many may recognize her voice from the TV show South Park. Eliza Jane Schneider now lives in San Diego and stars in her own one-woman stage show. Peggy Pico talks with the actress.
Her one-woman show, Freedom of Speech, debuted last week at the Diversionary Theater in University Heights. I'd like to welcome the show's creator and star, Eliza Jane Schneider. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Now, you've got an impressive resume of TV show credits, but you left all that behind. You left Hollywood behind and came to San Diego. How come?
I had a baby.
Okay.
I had a baby with a local San Diego boy, Roger Ray, of Ray's Tennis on University. But we knew each other for 20 years, so it was my excuse to, he was sort of my knight in shining armor that got me out of that godforsaken racetrack of a city.
out of Hollywood, you're talking about. Tell us about how your play, Freedom of Speech, came about. It's an interesting story of how it actually started.
Well, I was in college and working on Beekman's World, which was a TV show on CBS. And as an actress, I just really wanted to know what it was like to be someone raised in another culture and someone who wasn't me. And I didn't feel like opening and closing fake doors in a classroom was going to do that for me, as well as just going out there and listening to people. And so I decided to record dialects, American dialects. I switched from theater to world arts and cultures, and I made that my thesis project.
You actually, you have several, tell us about how many characters in your show and
I
talking
think
about
technically there are 34, but that includes a line here, a line there, you know.
Right. And you gathered those on a 300,000-mile road trip?
I've put 317,000 miles on various vehicles and, you know, on foot and trains over the past several years, but the American part of it was about 103,000 miles total.
Okay, and then moving beyond abroad. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, I know you recorded every conversation.
Yes.
During that time, will you give us a few samples of the different voices in your performance?
Oh, sure. One of my favorites is little girl from Georgia. I'll just do a slew of them.
Sure,
and maybe you can
give us a roll here.
That's what we got.
This one house in Greenwood still has the chains in the cellar where the slaves are shackled to the walls. They say it's haunted. You can still hear people moaning. Is that an ambulance you're driving? I think that's just wonderful. Heroin, it's like 1,000 orgasms combined with being back in the womb.
Wow, what a diverse group of voices, not just for you in your performance, but actually what they're saying and what they're talking about. If you had to sort of synopsize the lessons you learned in talking to these people and recording them, what would you say that would be here in America?
Just, we are all one, you know, and in this country where freedom of speech and freedom of religion are supposed to be really important to us, I think it's important to remember that you don't have to be right in order to be loved, and you don't have to agree with people in order to love them and feel a part of a big family here.
Were there some common themes, like did you realize whether it be the little girl or the heroin addict, that there were some common hopes and dreams and some common anger?
Well, initially when I first named this collection, I called it I'm Not Weird, American Perspectives, because there is no mainstream that I could find. Everyone thinks that they are the other.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's one commonality. And of course, you know, everybody wants to be loved, everybody wants to be happy, everybody has their struggles. But one of the more interesting parallels I drew was between the heroin addict and the kid that speaks in tongues, both talking about their passion, religion, drug addiction as sort of not an experience, but a relationship. So that was interesting.
Okay, people will have to come and watch it for that. Now, Moxie Theater is presenting your play at the Diversionary Theater in University Heights. Diversionary, excuse me, yes. And they're promoting it as part of their mission to create a more diverse and honest image of women. How would you say that your performance does that?
Oh, well, first of all, I just thank heavens for Moxie, because it's really important to have people out there doing this. And, you know, I guess what I have to say has a lot to do with diversity. It's bringing together, you know, 34 diverse American perspectives into one. And in my case, I think that women biologically have the capability of being two people at once.
Interesting, right.
So we have an interesting perspective, and I think we would make great world leaders for that reason.
Okay, well, people are going to have to find out more by coming to your performance. Eliza Jane Schneider, I thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us. I want to let folks know you can see Freedom of Speech at the Diversionary Theater on Park Boulevard. It runs through August 11th. For ticket prices and more information, go to kpbs.org.
Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Brown. On the next News Hour, the governor's contest in Virginia, plus Mark Shields and David Brooks. That's Friday on the PBS News Hour.
The Star of India has been transformed for Comic-Con. From the shore, you can see a pirate ship with brand new sails. Climb aboard, and you'll find it's filled with computers for video gaming. Arts reporter Beth Ancamando gives us a look.
Now you're ready to sail for the Horn. Hey, roll and go. Our boots and our clothes, boys, are all in the porn. To me, rollicking, randy, dandy-o.
San Diego Comic-Con has been invaded by zombies and aliens. This year, it's pirates. And that represents a bigger invasion, the invasion of video games on the exhibit floor.
Video games has evolved from being that hobby that pimple-faced teenage boys play in their parents' basement to something where everyone is gaming. You know, whether it be a console, their PCs, their phones, everybody is a gamer now. not designed for a 5'7" PR manager. My name is Stone Chin, and I'm the Senior Public Relations Manager for Assassin's Creed at Ubisoft. We're excited to be at San Diego Comic-Con. We want to make a big splash here, and so we thought, well, what hasn't been done before? Well, I don't think anyone has ever taken a pirate ship and planted it right behind the convention center. So we took the Star of India, we dressed it up, we recreated the Jackdaw, which is based on our game Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and we sailed it right in here. So on Friday and Saturday, people will be able to go on board, see the game firsthand, get their hands on some of the multiplayer, and kind of take part in some of what we like to call pirate lifestyle experiences. So we're taking advantage of all 3 decks of the Jackdaw. If you look down this way, we have this really cool history wall, which talks not only about the golden age of pirates, but some of the main characters who will make their appearance in our game. Edward Kenway is the hero of this year's Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag game. He's both pirate and assassin. We generally make sure that history is our backdrop, and we want to align ourselves pretty closely with being as accurate as possible. We're excited to offer hands-on multiplayer gameplay for people coming aboard the Jackdaw. They've set up a number of stations here.
And actually, you can share that type of event with your friends.
The final piece of the puzzle and the jewel of the Jackdaw experience is, of course, a view of a single player in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. We'll be debuting a brand new demo. People will be able to come down and see never-before-seen footage of the game.
There he is!
You've definitely seen the layer of storytelling take several leaps forward with video games. We're seeing developers and creatives really figure out how to use the technology and use it to tell a really compelling, emotional, amazing story. We're pretty excited to see what they've done, but as we introduce the next generation of consoles, just to see how these storytellers continue to take a step forward and really evolve the video game as an art overall.
The Star of India turned pirate ship is open for visitors and gamers tomorrow from 10 in the morning until 7 at night. Well, a lot of gas lamp quarters gotten a makeover as well for Comic-Con. The trolley station, there's now signs in Dothraki, a language from the HBO show Game of Thorns. KPBS culture reporter Angela Carone tells us how the language was created by a UC San Diego graduate.
In this episode of the NBC comedy The Office, the character of Dwight teaches Aaron how to speak Dothraki.
Dothraki is the native tongue of the nomadic, warmongering horse lords of Essos. I throat rip.
Fourth Agendak.
You throat rip.
Fourth Agendi.
He, she, it throat rips.
Fourth Agenda.
More of a barbaric growl.
Fourth Agenda.
Louder, you're shouting it from the back of a horse.
What? Agenda!
UCSD grad David Peterson was delighted when he saw that episode. He's a fan of The Office. He also created the Dothraki language for HBO's Game of Thrones. Peterson recently visited his alma mater to talk with students in the linguistics department. Before the lecture, he explained why he enjoys building a language from scratch.
When you're creating a language, if you're going to do it, responsibly, if you're going to try to really create something that's authentic, it's one of the most intellectually rigorous exercises I've ever undertaken. And to me, that's really the appeal.
Peterson started with the source material for the TV show, George R.R. Martin's series of epic fantasy novels, A Song of Ice and Fire. The Dothraki culture guided Peterson in creating the words.
With Dothraki, I remember one of the first words I coined was the word for horse, which was hrazef.
The Dothraki are expert riders, and horses are central to their culture. Peterson also created a phonetic and grammatical structure for the language.
I kept in mind what it was that English speakers would be expecting from the language, and also, what would sound, what would sound cool, what would sound menacing. And that means something different for an English speaker than it does for somebody who's a native speaker of Arabic or Japanese or Chinese. So I was working with kind of the expectations of English speakers in mind.
Peterson met George R.R. Martin at a book signing in San Diego. That's when he realized he got one crucial pronunciation wrong.
I'm like, oh, that's George R.R. Martin. Should I introduce myself? And then I just said, hi, my name is David Peterson. I'm like, hi, I'm the guy that did the Dothraki language. And he's like, oh, so you're the one that did Dothraki. And I'm like, wow. I was way off. I would never have guessed that.
Space, the final frontier.
Creating fictional languages for TV shows and movies became popular after the success of Star Trek's Klingon. Grant Goodall teaches language construction at UCSD. He says Klingon set a high bar for Hollywood.
So now that seems to be the new normal. If you're going to have a science fiction series or fantasy series, that you have to have, and if you're going to have some alien tribe or some alien species, they have to have their own language, and it can't just be gibberish that the actors make up on the spot.
Most linguists like Goodall and Peterson end up teaching in universities, but Peterson has carved out a real niche for himself. He's created another fictional language for the latest season of Game of Thrones. And the Sci-Fi Network hired him to create an alien language for the show Defiance. Meanwhile, Peterson hopes to build the Dothraki language to 10,000 words.
If you're going to do it right, if you're going to be creating a language, it pretty much, I mean, if you're going to really put your all into it, it can pretty much take up your entire life.
Angela Carone, KPBS News.
You can find more of tonight's stories online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.